Hi there, welcome to this VDV webinar where we are covering the latest and the greatest updates of Vista Data Vision for the past couple of months. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today, and I hope you learn something that you can use in your own project. As always, on the right hand side you can ask questions and send us an email to support@vistadatavision.com afterwards if you have any further questions. So let's just dive right into it. The first item that we are covering are the changes in the graphs in Vista Data Vision. First of all, the grid system has gotten an update where you can choose what kind of grid system you have on each graph. The default one that has been available for the past is where you have horizontal lines running through the graph in the background. Now it is easy to change that to have different kind of grid system where you have also vertical lines in the background. So let's take a look at it. Simply go to Setup, Historical Data, and I'm going to open up here one page. I have here my three graphs as before. What has changed here in the top right hand corner is that I have the option here Display, choosing from default, square and fine. If I simply change it to square, the Vista Data Vision will add a couple of vertical lines on my graphs. And if I choose fine, I will have even finer mesh in my background. So it makes it a little bit easier to read the axis and see how the data is changing. Another nice update is that you can decide if you want to display the legend. So the legend is displayed underneath each graph where you'll have the sensor name and the sensor unit. By simply toggling legend on and off, you simply hide the legend. With this update, we also added the option to include legend values. That means that Vista Data Vision will show you right next to the name the latest value of that particular sensor. So you have the sensor name, unit, and the last reading on the same graph. This is available throughout the system. If you're working on dashboards or reports or the historical data, you have the same functionality everywhere. Excellent. Let's take a look at the next change, which is related to the update overview. The update overview, just to have a quick recap, it is the option where you can have Vista Data Vision send you text messages or emails if your data loggers or stations go offline, meaning if no data is sent for specific number of hours, let's say 5 hours, you don't receive any data, the system will send you a text message or an email telling you that this system or the station is offline. Everything green in the update overview means that we have configured update overview or update alarm, and we do not have any alarm active. If it is white, it means that we do not have configured the update alarm, and we should do so. So we would want to see everything green or all in the background, green background colors. The color changes to red if we have an update alarm. What has changed here is that previously we would need to go to Setup and locate here Data Update Alarm. There we would configure the system to tell it to which contact group and how many hours we can allow to pass before alarm is sent. The change here is simply from the update overview. We see the site name, we see the owner, we see the last data, is that I can simply expand this view, and here I can either make changes or configure the site. So let's just configure this one here, for example, is that I can choose here to monitor it. I can say here, all right, if no data is inputted for 5 hours, I want to send an email, text message to my maintenance group. So much easier and quicker to configure data update alarm instead of going to setup and there into the data update setup. So super simple and super quick to make these changes. Another option that has been added to the data update alarm is the ability to track individual sensors. How data update alarm works is if you are receiving data, then an alarm is not sent. However, your sensor might be broken and you might just getting NaN values or blank values for specific sensor. In that case, previously, then nothing or no alarm would have been sent because we are getting data into the database. With the latest updates, you can configure the system to select individual sensor, individual columns in the database, and if we start to get NaN values or blank cells, we will receive a text message or an email saying that specific sensor is returning bad data and there's something wrong with that specific sensor. So data is coming in, but data for one or more sensors is bad, and you will get alarm on it. So let's take a look at how that works out. I will simply open up this specific station. I will activate to monitor it here for 5 hours. Underneath my setup for monitoring this specific site, I have a variable list. If I click here the plus button, it will show me all of the variables inside my site. So let's go in here and I say if my flow, for example, is offline for 3 hours, then I want to be notified. It means if this specific sensor is returning blank values or NaN values, I will just click here OK. I will receive a text message or an email depending on how I've configured my contact group. And you can do this for as many sensors, and you can have different intervals on each sensor. So you do not need to do it for all of the sensors, but you can choose which sensors are the most critical or something that you might be expecting that are going on and off. So we have improved the data update alarm quite a lot by making it easier to configure the data update alarm, along with adding the option to send messages if specific sensors are going offline. So that is it for the data update overview change. Let's next take a look at a big change in the virtual variables. The change here with virtual variables is that if you are doing a calculation where you have data coming from two sources, meaning you having it from two different data loggers or two different data files, if the data files in the past have not exactly the same timestamps, then virtual variables have not been able to calculate the value and just return nothing. Another scenario is one of your data loggers have 1 hour reading, the other one has 10-minute reading. You want to do calculation of them both. How it has been in the past is Vista was only able to do the calculation on the hour mark when both data loggers had readings, but for all of the other readings, nothing was calculated because both loggers had not data for that time, only one logger. So the change here is that you can have data from different sources, different data loggers, do calculation and tell the system that we are looking for values plus or minus couple of X number of minutes. You can configure how many minutes you want to be looking in either direction. If the system finds any reading within that boundary, it will do the calculation with the reading closest to the other reading. Let's just take a look at it. So it will explain itself a little bit better. So I'm just going to name this here webinar non-matching. I am going to connect it here to my water level data. And I'm just going, as this is just an example, I'm just going to have some NA unit. So let's add a reading here. I'm going to add one reading. This specific reading is being collected every hour, so it's recorded every hour, sorry. And if I simply do here plus, and I will just add here my barometer pressure. One thing I maybe misspoke here a little bit earlier, my water level sensor is recorded every 6 hours, and my barometric pressure is recorded every hour. We see here we have a non-matching timestamp option, but for the time being, I just want to click Save. I'm going to plot this. I'm going to open up my dashboard. I have created a short or small dashboard for this webinar where I have the two readings, both the barometric pressure and the water level, just the raw data. I can see my water level data is just here every 6 hours, but I see my barometric pressure is every hour and much, yeah. So let's plot our new calculated data. I will locate my new variable, and we can see that this variable is just calculated every 6 hours. That is the time when both loggers have timestamps at the exact same time, so the system is able to do the calculation. However, now we're going to do the test where we want the system to do calculation or locate the nearest reading so we have finer data. So I'm going to click Update. I'm going back to my virtual variable, and I'm going to activate here non-matching timestamps. First of all, I have a radio button here, the main variable. Main variable means that which variable is my primary variable. It means it will find the timestamp for my primary variable and try to locate the nearest reading for other variables. In this case, I'm going to have my barometer pressure the main variable because that is actually hourly reading, just for the demonstration purpose. I know that my water level is every 6 hours, and I want to do calculation every hour and try to locate the nearest water level data. So what I'll do simply here, I know that 6 hours are 360 minutes. I will just do 185 minutes. So I want to tell the system for each timestamp of my barometric pressure, I want to take a look at 185 minutes before the reading, 185 minutes after the reading, and find the value for my water level that is closest. Once I've done that, I can tell the system I want to wait until the post buffer is reached. That means is that if we have set it like this, the system will wait at least until 185 minutes have passed, and then it finds the latest or the closest reading. So if you do it like this, if it's not selected, the system will find the latest reading, it will do the calculation, it will display the reading. However, later on there could be another reading that is closer to the main timestamp, and then the value will change. So if you have multiple readings coming in this buffer time, then it will just take the latest one. If you activate here wait until post buffer is reached, it means it will wait at least in this case 185 minutes after the timestamp and then it will check, okay, which reading is closest. Hope that makes sense. You can ask questions if, if you want to. Let's click here, update. If we take a look at our dashboard again now, we can see that the variable, the calculated variable, is now we have data every hour. It means we have the barometer pressure every hour, and then we are locating the closest water level reading in either direction. So it is great if you have data from different sources that either don't have the same interval or do not have the exact same timestamps. Vista Data Vision is looking at exact seconds of the data. So if one data logger is drifting a little bit, the data is coming in at 5 seconds past or 10 seconds past or 2 minutes past. You can use this function to do the calculation and make sure you are aligning all of the data correctly and getting your corrected data onto the graph, onto the alarms. Excellent. I want to highlight as well on our help desk is that if you simply locate the virtual variable article, you can come in here and look at the virtual variables and simply here under match timestamps. You can read all about it and understand it a little bit better. You can also send us an email if you have any questions. Excellent. Next item is time shift of data. What is that? Somebody might ask. That is the ability to, when you're inputting data, is to shift the data. Let's say you have a data logger or something in the field that is fixed on UTC time, simply on that time zone, but you want to display the data at a different time zone. You want to display it on Eastern time or time zone in Vietnam or something like that, is that you can tell the system, this data logger is on UTC time, but I want to shift the data to a different time zone. One thing to note is that this is doing in the import process. It's not happening on the fly. So once the data has been inputted, you are not shifting time zones back and forth after the data has been inputted. So just let's take a look at how this is done. This option is only available here in the data source in the web interface. So we have here two data sources or two files that we're inputting, actually pump station that we have inputted. I did import before the webinar just this pump station with no shift, meaning we're just inputting the data as it is. So let's go ahead and import this station again. Just go in pump station with Timeshift. I choose an owner, I choose a format, and I choose my data file. Could obviously be TXT, CSV, or whatever data file, incremental or single data files. In this case, it's just a single data file. I can choose here the type of station. In this case, it is a pump station. And this is also something that was added quite recently, is that you can configure the type of the station right here in the data import interface. I can here choose the time zone of my station. Let's say here it is just here UTC 0 hours, but I want to display the data on Eastern time. So I'll simply click here time zone shift, and I can simply choose a time zone that I wish to shift the data in. So I'm telling the data logger it is always just on UTC 0 hours, the clock in the data logger. However, I have the data logger here on the East Coast of the United States, and I want to display the data in that time zone. So nothing else we need to do. We're just telling the system what time zone we have in the data logger and what time zone we want to look at the data. So Vista Data Vision, when it's inputting the data, it will shift the timestamps as you would expect into correct time zone. So let's click here next. We need to confirm that we want to do this. That's what we want to do. Right here at the end, we will just see an overview. We see the site name. We have a file structure, a single file. We can see the time zone, and we can also see here the time zone that we are going to shift it into. So we just click next and next. The system will here take a minute or so to process the data and import the data. Let's see, give it a 1 minute. While we are waiting on this, I want to highlight here our YouTube page where we are posting all of this webinar, recording of the webinar. So please go in there and subscribe to the channel, just so you're getting all of the latest videos. Last two webinars, we have been going over the quality control, quality assurance module in Vista Data Vision, along with the new Campbell Scientific data source, which allows you to collect data and send commands to the data logger. So we can see here now is that the timestamp of the no shift is here at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. And now I've shifted the data 5 hours ahead into midnight. So the system is actually taking the data, as I said, and converting the timestamps so you have all of your project data at the same time zone when you're viewing the data. The two last items are that I quickly want to go over the two major releases. We did have a separate webinar on those two, both the quality control, quality assurance. But if we take a quick look at that, is the quality control and quality assurance. It allows you to take data, input into Vista Data Vision, and then modify the data, review the data, and publish it. You can have 3 different levels of the data, and you're reviewing the data and you're publishing the data. This is great when you are working either with public data or working with data for a client that you want to review, you want to modify if needed, you want to flag it before it is actually shown to the end user. This can be used with any kind of data that needs correction. The difference also here is that you can have then users with access to different levels of data. You can have the administrator that has access to the raw data, the unmodified data, and then you can have level 1, 2, and 3, and give users access to different levels. So just a very powerful tool. We have a dedicated 30-minute webinar on this feature, so you can take a closer look at that here on our YouTube page. The other big release that actually had a different webinar as well is the Campbell Scientific data source update, where you can connect directly to Campbell data loggers through the web interface. You just have your IP address, username, and password, sorry about that. And you can then take a look at the status of the data logger. You can look at the public table. You can obviously collect the data directly into the database. But the beauty with it as well is that you can send commands to the data logger. Sending a command to trigger something on site, increasing pump flows, turning on lights, sirens, changing recording intervals, and so on. And you just program into the logger, send a command, and something happens on site. Just extremely powerful, and we are very glad to see all of the users starting to use this already, and we're just getting a great feedback. So just here, for example, if I wanted to send command, I could simply send a command here to the logger, and something happens on site. In the video we have here on our YouTube page, which is actually here almost 30 minutes long as well, where we are covering this in detail. We have a nice light which we are turning on and off, so very cool. I recommend you to take a closer look at that if you are having Campbell Scientific data loggers in your projects. That is it for today. We will have another webinar in a couple of months' time with the changes or improvements over the summer time. As I pointed out, take a look at our YouTube page, LinkedIn page, and on our help.vistadatavision.com, where you find articles, guides, and so on how to use Vista Data Vision. As always, we are always happy to take one-on-one meetings if you have specific queries, either for a potential project or you're not sure how to use specific features in Vista Data Vision. You can also schedule a specific training session for you and the whole team. Just send us an email and we will set that up. So that's it for today. Thank you so much. Have a good day and bye-bye.